Are you strong enough to overcome challenge and adversity? Hello, I'm Russ McCaskey, and thanks for joining us today on Plugged Into DFW. A lot of us, fortunately, will never be tested to see if we can overcome great setbacks. But for some, it is a reality, forced to choose to be resilient and courageous. My guest this morning knows this all too well. She has overcome unbelievable odds and encourages you to do the same thing in her new book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph. And we welcome to the show author and speaker, a two-time TEDx speaker, Anne Grady. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Russ.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the book. Why did you write it?
I wrote the book because I feel like so many people struggle with getting through life feeling strong enough. You know, we are all taught that we have to be resilient and get through adversity, but we're not given a process. So the book really takes you through a formula and a way to break through self-limiting barriers, really focus on what you can do to bounce back from setbacks and use them as a way to grow stronger.
Yeah, you start the book kind of by recounting a series of unfortunate events, which you come across with a lot of humor and so forth, but tragic in their own right. So tell us a little bit about that time in your life.
So my son Evan, who's now 14, is severely mentally ill. He's got a slew of neurological issues, but mental illness is one of them. And I found myself when he was about 2 years old as a single mom, and I thought, you know, well, I have a master's degree in communication and I have all this experience working with executives and teams. Surely I should be able to handle this. And I was drowning. And so after a couple of hospitalizations and an extended stay living at the Ronald McDonald House, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my face in 2014 in my salivary gland. So the tumor was larger than anticipated, which left the right side of my face paralyzed. So that resulted in a scratched cornea, which required surgery to put a gold weight into my eye, but not before I needed radiation, 6 weeks of radiation. And then while waiting for that, falling down the stairs and breaking my foot in 4 places. So it was just one of those opportunities life gave me to practice.
I guess so. Wow, you really had a lot of a run of bad luck there. So how do you handle all this? And then what did you learn from going through all that?
So I handle it one day at a time, just like everybody else. Like, the significant events can really shake us to our core, but it's often the more mundane, everyday life experiences at home and at work and in our relationships that really require strength and grit and courage. So it's a matter of making a choice of what to look for. It's making choices in your habits and choosing the way you think and behave to get the result you want rather than the one you're getting.
Yeah. You know, whenever we see people, hey, how are you doing? Oh, we're doing good. Yeah. Is it hard to disclose all this about yourself?
So initially, I wasn't disclosing it. I was asking for answers from my audiences and from my clients. I was sharing some of Evan's challenges to help find a solution. But as Evan got older, he really wanted to help people. And, you know, mental illness affects 1 in 5 children, 1 in 4 adults, and Evan wanted to make a difference. I think that's one of my proudest accomplishments. And a lot of people tell me that it makes a difference for them and it helps them. So making meaning of something like this is a great strategy to build strength and resilience. So
I guess you said at about 7 he was diagnosed with a mental illness. Were you noticing situations early on? How soon did this develop?
Well, when I was pregnant, something was wrong. Like, he would kick me so hard I would fall to the ground, bruising a rib. So when he was born, he was very colicky, cried all the time. We didn't know what was wrong. People thought I was exaggerating or making it up, and that was pretty tough because you start to think you're crazy. And eventually, around the age of 4, we went to a neurologist who said, this isn't normal, there's something wrong, we just don't know what it is yet.
So what's your hope in writing this book? What do you hope people get out of it?
2 things. So one, I want people to understand that everybody struggles at 100%. People tell me, you know, after my TED Talk, people said, how do you do that? My situation's nothing compared to yours, but... Well, that's comparative suffering. We all struggle at 100%. So I want everyone to know that the formula works, regardless of whether you're having a challenge in your marriage or at work. But also because I work with teams all over the world and leaders, and we now know that resilient leaders and resilient teams and those that practice these skills are more productive and more profitable. So
in this book, you not only thrive, but you survive and all that. And you created this formula. How did you come up with this, and how does it work?
So people kept asking how I got through it, and I kept saying, well, you know, there's courage, and then there's resilience, and ultimately you triumph. And so that is simply the formula. Courage plus resilience equals triumph, and it's really figuring out what those things mean to you.
So who could benefit from this book?
Anybody who has either gone through a tough experience or is going through one, who wants specific strategies, someone who's, excuse me, someone who's ready to change their behavior, to change their life, to get a different result. And it's also for groups and teams who want to communicate better and manage challenges with time and work and life.
All right, and so what's the feedback that you got from it once you put it out there?
So it's been overwhelmingly positive. You know, folks thank me for sharing the story, first of all, because they know they're not alone. But it's also full of practical strategies and exercises that you can go through to build these skills for yourself. So I've gotten great feedback that it's really turned some people around and made them look at life a little bit differently.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we have a lot to talk about. We do have to take a quick break. Coming up next, what it means to be courageous and how that plus resiliency can lead to triumph. Welcome back. We're talking about the book Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph with author Anne Grady. This book has the tools to help you handle life's obstacles, setbacks, and adversity. All right, so you say in this book that we need to triumph. We need courage to do that. So, so what does it mean to be courageous?
So courage is defined as the ability to do something that you know is difficult or dangerous. It's mental or moral strength to persevere. But my favorite definition is a quote by Marianne Radmacher, who says that sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I'll try again tomorrow. And it's waking back up and sticking with it.
You know, you say in the book that, you know, everybody likes to blame other things for their problems or other people or situations or whatever. When faced with setbacks, it's easy to fall into that victim mentality, isn't it?
It is.
And so what do you do about that?
Well, one, know that it's normal. Right? Everyone's allowed to have a pity party every now and then, but it's really looking at the situation and saying, it is what it is. What do I need to do moving forward? We find what we look for. So when we look for all the reasons life isn't fair to us, we find a ton of them. When we look for the reasons we have to do the right things and good things are still happening in light of all of the tragedy, we find those too.
You know, you don't seem to be saying that we can never get down or we can never, you know, feel bad for ourselves, but I guess it's okay just as long as you get back up at some point, right?
It's not only okay, it's required. So a huge courage and resilience building strategy is to process difficult emotions. Nobody likes to be uncomfortable, so we bottle it all up and think we'll deal with it later, but there's never a good time. And if you don't allow yourself to experience that grief and that sadness, that fear, then you're really not able to get past it. So absolutely, you have to feel. I still feel it. There are lots of days. We still struggle with this every single day. It's not like I've made it through to the other side. I'm in the middle of it. And so it's really giving yourself time to process, be allowed to grieve, feel sadness, and then decide you're going to move forward.
Yeah, and we all, I guess, have different crosses to bear. So yeah, well, you know, and you're right. We're all, our lives are just spinning out of control always. So you got to take time to pause and see what's going on. Okay, so are there different types of courage?
Absolutely. So I know people who are fearless when it comes to jumping out of a plane or extreme sports, but they don't want to fall in love because they might get hurt. So there's emotional courage, which is letting yourself feel the difficult feelings. There's physical courage, moral courage, mental courage. No one size fits all.
And so a lot of people might think of courage as being fearless, but not necessarily, right?
No, I think courage means that you're afraid and you do it anyway. You know, it's being afraid and working through the discomfort and using that as a catalyst to help build strength, endurance, and resilience.
Is courage something that you think that we're born with, or is it something that we acquire throughout the lifetime?
I used to think it was something you were born with, like a genetic trait, like skinny thighs. You know, you either have it or you don't.
Right.
But what I've learned is that it is absolutely a set of skills that can be built through a lifetime. And whether we like it or not, life gives us plenty of chances to practice.
So can we train ourselves to be courageous?
Absolutely. And you start with your thought process. What is keeping you stuck? I know we're all guilty of getting a little complacent and hitting the snooze button in life and get stuck in the status quo. And courage is really about taking a long, hard look in the mirror and identifying what you can do individually to work through that process. And that's what the book does. And
so if we start out and we are a little bit timid, will we get stronger over time by practicing and by pushing ourselves?
Absolutely. I don't think I would have been able to get through the tumor and the facial paralysis and the eye surgery and the radiation and the broken foot. I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't had the strength and resilience training I've had with Evan. So yes, you can train yourself. It just means you have to look at tragedy, trauma, and difficulty a little bit differently than you might look at it before.
How long did it take you to realize that?
It's a journey. I'm still learning. You know, I'm still working through it. But people would say, "You're so brave. How do you keep getting back up?" I had a guy at a book signing go, "I thought my life sucked, but wow." You know, and I don't know if you take that as a compliment or...
I don't know how you react to that either.
But it's a choice every single day, and some days it's more difficult than others.
Yeah, how is your son doing?
We have our good days. We have our not so good days. Every day is an adventure. But, you know, it's one of those ongoing life challenges that there's not a quick fix or an easy answer.
Right. All right, well, we got to take another break, but coming up, more on how courage plus resilience equals triumph. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back talking with Anne Grady about her book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph. And we have been talking about, in order to triumph, that we need the combination, I guess, of courage and resilience. So let's talk about resilience for a minute. What does it mean to be resilient?
Resilient is basically, resilience is your ability to get back up after you've been knocked down, your ability to bounce back. And I would encourage you to think about it like this. If you have made it through every difficult experience in your life so far, you are resilient by nature. It's proof that you're already strong enough, but there are tools that you can use and skills that you can build to be more resilient.
So everyone faces misfortune at some point, some maybe more than others. So what does it take to overcome these setbacks?
Well, that's why I created the book, because nobody was there to teach me how to do it. And I really felt like using this process, you could learn to work through steps to identify mental barriers, but also practical strategies that you can use. Things like gratitude, right? We now know it's one of the #1 predictors of well-being, and it seems touchy-feely, but what we know now is that you don't even have to find anything to be grateful for. The simple act of looking increases serotonin and dopamine, which are the feel-good neurotransmitters in many antidepressants. So something that simple can make a big difference. Another way I share in my TED Talk, actually, is that we can choose our expectations. Right? The days, my favorite singer-songwriter, Ray Wiley Hubbard, says, the days that I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations, those are good days. So you can't always choose reality, but you can certainly choose your expectations around it.
And so you're saying we can learn to be more resilient?
Absolutely. It is absolutely a set of skills. And if you learn those skills, you can transfer them across any situation, personally or professionally.
So are there certain characteristics that resilient people have?
Sure. Sure.
What are they?
First, it's they surround themselves with the right people. We all know those that are negative and they're energy drainers and they constantly complain and they constantly have drama. We have to be very careful about the people that we select to be in our inner circle. Another thing is staying mentally healthy, really, and the only way to do that is to stay physically and mentally healthy. So it's really making daily choices that sometimes aren't as much fun, but really bring you more resilience. But resilient people also don't see challenge and adversity as a bad thing. They use it as a catalyst, again, to really help hone the skills that they need to be able to become more resilient. So
how do we become more resilient? Is this something that we practice every day, these types of things, and put these things in our lives and maybe even schedule them?
Absolutely, yes. So gratitude is something I practiced it in the car before I came in. I meditated for 10 minutes, and mindfulness is a huge resilience strategy. And thousands of studies have demonstrated now that you don't have to eat tofu and sit in the full lotus position to do it. You can just sit quietly and think. But gratitude is a huge practice. I think people who focus on looking for the right things learn to be more resilient. Those that take care of themselves are typically more resilient, and those that don't try to put blame on any person or anything for the challenges in their life. It is what it is. You've got what you've got to work with. What do you need to do moving forward? And resilient people really think about that every day and do practice it.
You know, you talked about the people in your inner circle and things like that, because some people are surrounded by negative people, and that can really bring you down. It's important to surround yourself, I guess, with people who are also thinking about being resilient and having courage and these kinds of things, right?
Yes, ideally. But if you can't find those people, find the people that are considerate, that are caring, that show you empathy. Find people that have a positive mindset and want to look for solutions instead of talking about problems. And we tend to keep ourselves stuck with the same circle, and we have to be very selective about who we spend our time with. We're a mirror representation of the people we spend the most time with.
You know, always in life there's ups and downs, and people hate to fail, I guess, just by nature. How do we get over that?
You don't. You know, nobody likes to fail, but what we know now is that resilient people fail faster and more often than non-resilient people because they take risks. They make an effort to really approach things differently rather than thinking I'm scared to do it. It's like, let's see what I can learn from it. And it is scary and it is a risk. But I think that if you are wanting to become more resilient, you have to get out of your comfort zone in order to do that.
All right, so you talked a little bit about self-caring and being more resilient by doing that. How do you become more self-caring?
So it's like the oxygen mask on the plane. You have to place your mask on first. And it's the same thing in life. I used to think I have no time to care for myself. Well, a massage therapist is the one who found the tumor that saved my life because it was traveling toward my brain. It's making sure that sleep is a non-negotiable, that you are physically active because that tamps down the stress response and controls the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It's eating correctly. I mean, they're all the things that we're told to do and we think, yeah, I don't have the time or energy to do it, but they all give you the time and energy you need.
Yeah, and so you say that this is really non-negotiable, right?
Right. I'm not an exercise fanatic. I don't enjoy it, but I swim 3 or 4 times a week because I understand that it shifts my brain processing. It tamps down the stress response. It helps new neural pathways get built. It helps others heal. And it's just something that physically, mentally, and emotionally resilient people share in common.
All right, interesting stuff. All right, we're going to take another quick break, but we're going to come back, continuing talking about the book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about the book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph, with author Anne Grady. And this book helps empower us and so forth. Let's talk a little bit about your son. You mentioned Evan. He's 14 now. He's been dealing with mental illness for at least 7 years. So how do you incorporate some of these philosophies and techniques with him, and what difference does it make?
So Evan's an amazing kid. He is smart, he's funny, he's boy as boy can get, and he loves to fish. So for example, taking time to allow that to happen and make that a priority for him is a way to practice resilience. He's really able to get calm and patient, and he's learning what to do to advocate for himself so that he can find that in school and at home. And he's just a really shining example of what it means to be resilient and brave. Yeah,
he knows that he's been dealt, I guess, a difficult hand, but it seems like he's doing a lot better from the way you talk about him.
He asked me last week, why can't I have a happiness disorder? So it can be funny and heartbreaking, but sure. He's a trooper, and he's actively involved with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and he really has made it his mission to help others who are struggling with the same thing.
Oh, good for him. I wish him all the best. Well, how important is it to keep in mind that while setbacks are horrible, they don't have to define us?
It's everything. It's everything, because understanding that setbacks have a reason. When we fall down, we get stronger. And so if you, yes, you want to grieve and have that time to feel whatever you're feeling, but they not only don't define us, they dictate our success. Our ability to navigate those difficult times really helps us build strength and courage so that we can triumph for whatever life throws our way.
So how do you draw strength to overcome all these things that that you've overcome, but what anyone can overcome?
It's a daily practice. Yeah. So it's not that I've overcome all of these challenges every day. I have to make a conscious decision. I have signs in my house that say, you know, what are you grateful for today? I have to take time to go exercise, even though it's not my favorite thing. It's really about making deliberate choices and using strategies that I share in the book to overcome even just the bad days where nothing traumatic is happening. You just have a really bad day.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to come up with these strategies and so forth? Was it something kind of trial and error, and then you said, I need to put this in writing?
Well, so it's interesting because, you know, I was working with a corporate client, and I couldn't figure out how to put it into words. And so my first book is 52 Strategies for Life, Love, and Work, and that was really a collection of strategies that I used to help navigate the adversity and the change. It wasn't until my tumor and facial paralysis and everything else that came along with it that I really started becoming interested in the field of resilience and started researching it and understanding that it is a skill, one that can be practiced and honed.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the book. Where can people get the book, and where's it available, and that kind of thing?
So it's available at getstrongenough.com. It's also available on Amazon, and it's available in Kindle form, but getstrongenough.com is probably the best place to find it.
And so how important is it to enjoy the little moments in life rather than maybe waiting for that big moment to come along?
You know, that's probably been my biggest lesson. I think we blanket happiness as all or none, but happiness comes in little blips. And I call them delicious moments, really savoring the moments that you feel good, that you're happy, that you're sharing it with friends, or that you're having a great meal. And once you start savoring those moments, you start looking for them and you find more of them. Yeah. So those are the key.
And so it's those little things in life. And people always say, stop and smell the roses and things like that. There really is something to that.
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't take time to appreciate the little moments, you get lost in the myriad of negativity and you get overwhelmed. But if you stop and appreciate those tiny little moments, even if it's just feeling a breeze on your face and putting down your phone for a few minutes, those are the moments that really define us.
Yeah, we should probably all do that from time to time. Anne Grady, thank you so much. And again, check out this book. It is Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph. That's all the time we have for now, but we want you to stay plugged into DFW. And to find out more about the stories and the organizations that we highlight each week, you can check us out online at txa21cares.com. Just click on the Plugged Into DFW logo.